I'd like to state that these tabulations are a guide and a tool for the CCA nominating in the executive committees. This was not a popularity contest. The executive committee has a responsibility for the final selection of the slate. And while the results of this recommendation program are not binding on the executive and the nominating committees, I believe everyone who sent in his recommendation for the CCA slate can rest assured that his suggestions will receive the utmost consideration as the slate is selected over these next few days.
We believe that if there is any hope for achieving peace in the Middle East, it's by a quiet diplomacy. It is to say by talks, even though they are at the present indirect, to Ambassador Yaring, in which each side will free to come up to say what it thinks without being exposed too much to the limelight of television, newspapers, etc. At least we will not disclose anything which is going on there without Yaring's agreement or the Arab countries' agreement.
We would hope it could. We see no reason why it couldn't have. Hank Brown, the president of Texas AFL-CIO, has filed a lawsuit against the Insurance Commission trying to block the increase. And we would hope that, and I would suspect the reason they're having these hearings is this lawsuit. If you recall, when these grievances were first filed, the chairman of the commission said there would not be any hearings held. I'm sure you all remember that. And now, even though it is something like a month and a half after they have made the decision and they put the new rates in force, all of a sudden now they decided they will hold the hearings. And I would suspect that the lawsuit had something to do with it.
What can Fort Worth as a city, what can citizens of Fort Worth do?
All right. I'm beginning to see in this city the development among the Mexican-American community of their own corporations, their own nonprofit corporations, their own internal programs. They need resources. They're beginning to address themselves to the community saying, don't service us any longer. Fund us so that we can change ourselves, change professional attitudes, change institutions. And with all due respect to poverty federal programs or institutions, they fund service. They do not fund change. And the minority wants to change. This whole country must face that issue.
Well, they're not on the way in yet. It'll be some while. Transit buses are custom made. We don't buy them like we buy automobiles off the showroom. We write our own specifications. We have to take bids for them. We have to get the Department of Transportation in Washington to approve our specifications. They approve the awarding of the contract. So it'll be several months before we're able to get additional buses on the streets in Dallas.
Since these buses were on the streets up through yesterday afternoon, and we're not going to get replacements for several months, as you say, can we then expect any curtailment in service in the meantime?
Not at all, and this will not affect our operations at all. Any good management team will have on their property sufficient buses at all times to maintain their service, and this includes a number of spare buses so that we can keep buses going through our shops for preventive maintenance programs at all times.
I think the most important game is probably the Fort Worth game Saturday night, but if we can go into Tulsa and beat them Friday and have this edge coming into Dallas Saturday, I think we'll beat Fort Worth and then go on to Oak City. But primarily, I think the Fort Worth game is the big one for us right now.
Well, what do you have to do to beat Fort Worth? You've had trouble with them in the past few games.
I think we've played well against Fort Worth. In fact, well enough to win. But they've come up with a big play, and I don't think we've come up with one yet in the game. They get a few breaks. We go up and down the ice, skate with them, check them, shoot with them, and then all of a sudden they'll score a goal, get another quick one. Before we know it, we're 2 goals down. I think we'll beat them decisively Saturday night.
Well, they've had some good goaltending against Dallas, have they not?
Yes, McLeod seems to just play fantastic. Then they put Gray in against us last game, and he made something like 25, 26 stops, and they were close in and good shots. I think they've had the edge in goaltending on us. Not the fact that they're a better goaltender, it's just that we're not getting breaks around their net, and they are, and they're beating our goaltenders.
Now, you having scored 30 goals for Dallas, will Fort Worth devise anything against you, do you feel?
I don't feel they really can, because I play with a guy named Terry Caffrey and my other winger, Donnie Gordon, who are probably two of the finest hockey players in the league. And so if they put somebody on me, Caffrey's going to score. If they put somebody on Caffrey, Gordon's going to score. So I think we have a balanced line. I don't think they can afford to put a player on me.
Well, at first it was just kind of a joke the way that people, the rivalry, because it just didn't seem to be part of the team. But it's gained quite a bit of momentum, and it's become kind of a personal grudge between the two teams, I think. And I think we've gained quite a bit of confidence by winning the last 3 games, and they've got to come to us now instead of us beating them, really. We've got the edge right now, so.
You look for a wide-open game or a close-checking game or a rough game on Saturday night?
I think it'll be probably a lot like the last game we played over in Dallas. Wide open, lots of skating, and maybe not a lot of hitting unless one team gets too far ahead.
Let me ask you this, who's going to win it?
Is there any doubt?
Unipack doesn't look like anything you'd want to sing Good Morning, Dear Teacher to. Mr. Shanks, exactly what is this machine's function in the schoolroom?
Well, this particular machine is called a reader printer, and it makes it possible for teachers in our classrooms in Dallas to share the brain power, if that's a good way to put it, with teachers all over the country. Because in the Unipack Bank, as it's called, teachers from literally every state in the Union have deposited learning packages on microfilm, and this makes it possible for teachers in Dallas to share these materials that have been developed by other teachers over the United States.
How does it work?
A microfilm is capable of taking 72 pages of printed material. Obviously, if you had 4,000 such learning packages on printed material, it'd be difficult just to store this material. But on the microfilm, we can have an unbelievably large number of pages recorded. This one particular learning package that I have here has 26 pages in it. A teacher can, this particular learning package, by the way, is on identifying prefixes and their meanings. A teacher of language could put this microfiche into the reader printer, take a look at the various pages, see what she wants, and then print the pages that she wants to use in her classroom.
So this is not an example of a machine taking over an individual's role, is it?
Not at all. This is an example of a machine being used by an individual, and this teacher can tap resources from all over the country with this machine.
Unipack, another step forward from the old red schoolhouse.
Well, 2 years ago, I was
I'm very concerned about Texas because there is an iceberg of racial tension. There's much less dialogue than there is in California. I think the Chicano community, and I say Chicano community because those are the youth, the kids now seeking justice, and they are at the crossroads. There's a constructive alternative and there's also a destructive one, and I'm sad to see that our youth do not have the leadership or the adequate concepts to communicate to that larger society, and they are beginning alternative, the non-constructive one. And in Texas, there is far more racial tension, far more polarization between the Mexican-American community, Chicano community, and the Anglo community. If this is not bridged soon through giving and taking and dialogue, yes, I fear problems.
Well, we saw the suspects running from the store as we approached. And we followed them around the block a couple of times around the block, and they started shooting at us.
How many times did he fire?
About 5 or 6.
Did you return the fire?
One time, yeah.
Was anyone hurt?
No.
Do you know what you struck, sir?
Let's go ahead and move out.
Thank you very much.
Well, I pointed, as I got in front of the Sears, I saw the pickup again coming towards me. They made a turn over to this parking lot, and by that time I saw the squad car coming behind, and I pointed him again this way, the direction they had gone. And I came in there, and I saw the policeman duck down, and guns drawn. So I said, well, there must be some shooting, so I ducked too.
Where'd you duck, Albert?
Well, I ducked over there towards the construction.
I definitely think it was a senseless killing. In respect, I can't see what purpose it would have. The man had no defense other than his arms. The other man was armed.
Could the assailant have perceived the dead man as having been a threat to his getaway?
If he did, I can't see how.
What kind of a man would it take to shoot down a 66-year-old bystander?
It would take someone that was very desperate, or someone who was very much a coward.
Johnny Horizon, where do you go from here?
Well, I'm on my way to a better day where the air is clean and the water is clear.
I don't believe that Red China will move into Southeast Asia and engage American troops, because that would mean the virtual certainty that we would bomb their industry out of existence, that we would bomb their nuclear development out of existence. They would face the possibility that 1 million troops under Chiang Kai-shek might be unleashed on their eastern flank. These are all inhibitions on Red China. Too, they've got their own internal problems to deal with at the moment. So I think that they are only saber-rattling. I don't think they would follow through. To begin with, they have been active in Laos for some time themselves. We are not threatening the territorial integrity of Communist China at all. We have no intention of doing so.
No, it is possible. Remember, during the Korean conflict, I do not recall precisely what China has done, but China warned United Nations and United States either 3 or 4 times that they would interfere as soon as the forces, Allied forces, would come a little bit too close to their borders, which they consider serious threats to their national security, and they did. The tragedy, I think, in the whole Vietnamese situation, that North Vietnam managed not to allow Chinese divisions to penetrate North Vietnamese territory in order to help them, remembering that China once occupied Vietnam, North and South, for 700 years. And every national hero of Vietnam is a Vietnamese who fought successfully against Chinese. And if at the present time China will find pretexts to go into Laos or in Vietnam, it might stay there for centuries.
Well, the guy came in from around the check stand, the cash, where they cash checks, and he fired twice, once into the, when the guy first went around the corner, and then once again when he fell on the floor, and possibly a third time. And after that, I didn't see which door he went out or what kind of car he got in or anything like that.
What did you do when you heard the first shot?
I thought it was a joke. I really did. I thought someone had set off a firecracker.
When did you decide it was for real?
When he fell.
I predicted that if we had a few breaks and got things going for ourselves, we'd finish in second place. And I still believe that we will. We're 1 point behind Dallas at this stage of the game, and I think we can catch them. We have to play them 4 more times, and everything will depend, I believe, on what we do against Dallas in those 4 games. The way our hockey club has been playing lately, I'm very proud of them. They've been working very hard for me, and they want to finish up in the standings. The only reason I don't think we can finish first is because I think Omaha has too many points at this stage of the year, but I certainly feel that we will finish second.
Bob Lemieux has gone on record as saying, as predicting exactly the number of games the Wings would win, and this leaves him with just 3 losses left for the season. Do you feel this is an exaggerated estimate?
Yes, it is, Jerry, very much so. They're going to find that they have approximately, I believe, 23 hockey games left to play, and they're going to lose, I'm going to say, go on record as saying losing at least 23. I think they'll lose 9 or 10 of them.
How do you feel about your schedule?
Well, our schedule, I think Fort Worth has a little better schedule than us. I mean, their home schedule is a little better than ours because they have 2 more home games than we have. But we have 2 games in hand, which could make up the difference. And I always say that we must play them on the road and we must win them. But we're going to win some at home, and we're not going to lose too many at home for the rest of the season. So I've got it calculated pretty well down to the end of the season, and given Oklahoma City and Fort Worth a little bit of an edge, that we could end up... this is my prediction, 1 point ahead of Fort Worth and possibly 6 points ahead of Oklahoma City.
And the winner, Larry Clarkcroft in the red corner.
Well, we thought that the entire proposition was rather ludicrous, and the results were, of course, amusing and to be expected. I thought particularly that the head of the CCA's statement that even if 300,000 cards had come in backing one person, that the CCA would not necessarily choose him. Now, if that had happened, that would have been at least 4 times as many people as have ever voted in a Dallas City election. And to deny a majority of that kind would just be absolutely preposterous, and I think it underlines really what they're trying to do.
Are you saying then the postcard survey was colored?
I'm saying that the postcard survey was a means of selecting the people whom they really intended to select. In other words, in giving them some sort of a public backing or a presumed public backing.
Well, how would this be accomplished? How would you do this, set it up, in other words?
Well, Mr. Sholkoff didn't let you count the cards, did he?
From what happened last night, a very bad thing happened last night. The CRG was supposed to have had some type of a political meeting out here, and when the grassroots community people showed up with the youth and the senior citizens and all, they backed out and would not feed the youth. We had to take up money. So I'm saying this, we are serving notice to all political hacks who have their machines and their lackeys in our communities. That day is over. They are going to have to touch bases with community people at large.
How are you going to accomplish this?
Just like we did last night, from word to mouth, knocking on doors and taking the good news.
Mr. Hamill, with the trend and the census showing that people are moving more to the urban areas and leaving the rural areas, what is this going to do to the REA?
Well, I think it's evident right now that about
70% of the people in this country are living on 1 or 2% of the land. It's a very small figure. Actually, what is happening is people are establishing weekend homes, and there are housing districts being established out in rural areas, housing districts, just housing clusters. Consequently, it's my opinion that there will be more people living in what is now referred to as rural America in 10 years, even percentage-wise, than there is right now.
Do you feel that eventually the REA will move into the fringe areas and the urban centers and be able to relieve some of the burden there?
Well, they are in the areas, fringe areas right now, because take Dallas, Fort Worth, the area that we're located in right here today. 35 years ago, what's suburbia here now was part of rural Texas.
There is no strong concerted drive afoot to bring hard liquor advertising on radio or television. There has been an announcement made by one group owner that he would carry hard liquor advertising in the future if he received any orders for same. To the best of my knowledge, at this time, he has not received any orders for same, and this is the only individual that I know of that has made such an announcement. Now, I would like to mention the cigarette thing, because I think that this probably is one of the most discriminatory pieces of legislation that's ever been adopted by the Congress of the United States. The fact that only one advertising media is precluded from carrying cigarette advertising when you see it carried in magazines and newspapers, skywriting and billboards, and magazines are getting more and more pages of it each and every week, and I just think it's a discriminatory piece of legislation.